I think what's important about the CAT model for me is that it offers not only a very rich theory and model of what whole human beings are and how they may come to have problems, but also a whole position and a way of approaching working with that. I vividly remember coming across CAT pretty much by chance, as it happened, working with Tony O'Reilly about 25 years ago now, and feeling an enormous sense of relief, having struggled with a range of other different approaches and models, that they didn't quite address the whole thing somehow. And I think Tony O'Reilly's huge achievement, and it really is a massive achievement, I think, was to pull together and integrate the valid and effective aspects of a range of different models, and in a very creative way put them together in a way that not only made sense as a theory of what makes human beings who they are in a whole sense, but also how we might go about working with them and helping with them. And I remember vividly thinking that this had saved me actually years of struggle and frustration. I think since then, the model has continued to evolve, but it maintains a fundamental focus on the relational and social nature of human beings, on how they're formed and constituted and located as well. And that's a very core part of the model, which I think is not only appealing, but actually it's scientifically validated by now. A lot of the original concepts, I think, were more or less intuitive on the part of Tony Ryle. I think he acknowledges this himself, but hugely interestingly, in the subsequent years, a whole generation of work in infant psychology, neuroscience, sociology, and so forth has entirely vindicated that, and the work, it stands now on very firm theoretical and scientific basis, as well as its approach embodying all the recognized aspects of therapies that do work. And the key thing about that would not only be seeing people's problems and difficulties as having relational origins, but giving us a way of working in an authentic relational way that addresses those issues. And one of the key, there are several important aspects of that. One would be that we don't just see people as presenting with symptoms, behaviors that we work on in some sort of technical way. We don't see people as some sort of cognitive or biological machines. We see them as whole people with whom we engage relationally in a proactive, collaborative kind of way, which at the time was really quite revolutionary, that we would be explicit about our position, we would share our understandings.
I want to share with you and tell you what's important for me in cognitive analytic therapy. And the value that I found in this therapy is the integration of different ways of working and understanding the clinical problems. You can work very flexibly using cognitive techniques or psychodynamic techniques, and that was what I was looking for. Initially, I came from the psychoanalytic background, and finding the integrative movement in the early 90s was very important. And in those different therapies, cognitive analytic therapy was one of the very first integrative therapies around the world. And that was very, very useful for me.
One of the most important things in CAT for me is its profound grounding in active collaboration, in the sense that it actively involves the relationship between the patient and the therapist in the process of change. And it's with this purpose, for example, that we use patients' own metaphors as ways of making sense of what appeared as a nonsense so far.
What's been one of the most important things for me about CAT is its very well-researched integrative structure, theoretical structure, which offers 12, 16, 24 sessions. This forms and sits like a safe scaffolding to hold the collaborative work and the often complex dance and enactments of relational patterns. It also allows me to work creatively in whatever way is most appropriate for the patient. So this might be through using drawing, dance, music, writing, body work, mindfulness. And because the reformulation holds the structure and is constantly referred to, this allows the work to keep the shape and the therapeutic exchange to be held safe within the structure.
One of the things I love about CAT, and there are many things, is that the reformulation stage enables people to see that their unhelpful patterns that are causing their current problems were created in order to enable them to survive the conditions and the relationships that they had in their childhood. And once people understand this, it can take away the critical judgment that they've had of themselves all this time, and instead it can replace it with a much more non-judgmental, understanding and compassionate view of themselves. And this alone I've seen have a huge impact on people.
One of my favorite concepts in CAT is zone of proximal development. I need it everywhere. Imagine a child doing a puzzle. A sensitive parent kind of helps around in a discreet way, letting the child take the credit for discovery and agency. We as therapists, we try to do the same. Vygotsky originally said, what you can't do on your own today, but can do with a more experienced person, you can do on your own tomorrow. So zone of proximal development is an area of possibilities for change. Sensitive therapist adapts to clients' capacities, emotional states, manner of talking, tempo, and temperamental characteristics, readiness for change, and so on. So this entails the simple idea of tailoring and matching your therapist actions to suit the client at that moment that may vary from time to time. So it's a simple idea of a Goldilocks. Goldilocks with the three bears, finding just right way.
One of the many things I like about CAT is that right at the beginning we acknowledge and agree that we're working towards an end. Working towards an end helps us to be more focused in our work and to use the time we have in an effective manner. Endings are not always easy and provoke a lot of feelings and sometimes very painful feelings. These feelings can help us to do the emotional work in the therapeutic process and help us to work through early hurts around endings. In CAT, the ending is celebrated or marked by the interchange of a goodbye letter. The therapist gives a letter to the patient and the patient to the therapist. In this letter we acknowledge the work which has been done and the process which will be ongoing. It's as well a gift in which we acknowledge the therapeutic relationship which has made the therapeutic process possible. On top of that, it is a transitional object which helps bridge the gap between the ending session and the follow-up session.
What I really like about CAT is the fact that because it's a relational multi-voiced model, as therapists we have to be constantly aware of our role within the therapeutic relationship. And so fundamentally, it's one human being sitting across from another human being. And this, together with the reformulation in CAT and the tools that we use, particularly CAT mapping, helps therapists stay on track. And not only can we stay on track, which actually helps us avoid very collusive patterns, which actually could repeat very negative experiences for clients, also we are able to have the flexibility to move with our clients within the model.
So what I really like about CAT is that it's a model that helps people to learn how to reflect through the process of therapy itself. So through the process of using tools and diagramming and thinking together, it allows you to offer therapy and to engage in therapy with people who traditionally don't look very therapy ready, perhaps very chaotic or very young, or people perhaps with learning disability or all sorts of challenges who wouldn't normally be able to engage in therapy. It's a flexible model, and it's an adaptive model that allows you to work with people so that they can increasingly understand what it means to step back and reflect. And that's a very helpful thing about CAT.
Model of how we can do therapy with somebody in a room. It's being used as a consultancy tool. It's also being helpfully used as a way of conceptualizing what it is that people bring, the whole idea of mental disorders, which is currently very badly and poorly addressed. So we always look to the whole person rather than simply checklists of symptoms and behaviours, and that's led to some very interesting and innovative work across a whole range of situations now too, which I know Tony Ryle has always been enthused to see as it develops, and in a more broader social way perhaps too. It's helped to understand perhaps the social origins and formation of many of the mental disorders we work with. That's a particular interest to some of us. So overall, it's a model that offers a rich, comprehensive theory. We have to have some place we start with when we do our work. And it continues to be that for me, although it continues to evolve and it needs to, but also a very helpful and humane, above all, way of engaging with patients in the real world and helping them onwards, which at a personal level too, many of us, I think, in the CAT community find enormously fulfilling and rewarding. And in that sense, we're enormously grateful to the man who developed the model in the first place. Thank you for that.